Once upon a time there was a little girl, and once a year she had to do something special. One day in the year she had to do something special, and she was trained during the whole year to do that special thing. And just a day she had to do that, and especially the few moments before she had to do what she was taught to do, she had this feeling, although she was very young, she had this feeling, this is death. This is what it is to be dead, because she felt like her stomach being here, her heart beating in the ears, dry mouth, everything like that, and she was really worried that how on earth does she have to do this special thing when her body was really dying, actually, was really saying, I can't do this. But funny enough, just a few seconds before the music started, actually on the second before the music started, it went away. It went away and the energy shifted, and she felt like alive again, and extremely alive. Even better, she felt like she was carried by something or someone, and she didn't have to do anything anymore, even though what she did was pretty exhausting and pretty much asking a lot of her body. But she felt like, wow, it was like, that's why she liked it, those moments. As much as she feared it, she also liked those moments. Now this is the first experience that I had. I must have been 8 years old or 7 years old when I was doing a ballet on the stage, and when I was a kid. That was the first platonic fear that I experienced. And I say this as a platonic fear because I think there are two kinds of fears. And I say this personal example. Why? Because fear is so personal. There's so much uniqueness involved when it comes to our fears. And we are not really always open. We're not going to talk about our fears to people that we don't know. It's a very intimate thing. Now in this video I want to explain what is fear about. I'm certainly not going to explain what you can do all with that fear, although I might give some tips of my own experience, but I'm certainly not a specialist in that. But what my aim is also to show in astrology, where can you see fear in a chart, and even better, can you see moments, that is transits or progressions in a chart, that are really important, that we can do something about it. And yes, there is definitely some aspects that I will go into in a moment. So first of all, there is different kind of fears. If we go back to history of our ancestors, it was all because of a reason. You know, if you didn't have the fear, it was life-threatening. If you saw an animal and you just go towards a very dangerous animal, you know, you could die. So you had to fight or you had to flight. But nowadays the fear is more about, it's different. It's not about survival, although we all have these periods in our life that we have those fears and that we act as if we are on a survival modus. So, and where does it come from? It comes from, it's different for everybody. Some people have had traumatic experiences in their lives, like sexual abuse. Those people can have, even when they are way older, they can have panic attacks, and they can have extreme fears for nothing, just because some little detail reminded them of the horrible situations that they had to cope with. So that's one, or another traumatic experience. But if you want to look into it, you can look at the different levels that there are of fear. And you can start at the biggest level, the collective level, and then look at an individual level, which is an individual chart of a person. Now, if you look at the collective level, which I can talk days of course, because we see so much happening around fear on a collective level. And even if we travel around the world, I just came back of a trip that I made to a friend, and you think it's going to be different there. It's not. Actually, I went to see the Statue of Liberty, and I thought, my goodness, this is going to give me this feeling of freedom. But it really felt like it's probably because I'm European, and it was the first time that I went to America, and I felt very of a culture shock of all the rules and the safety rules. You know, beware of this and beware of that. It sounded like my mom. So it's very paradoxal, you know, talking about liberty, and at the same time we talk a lot about liberty on a collective level. We want freedom, we want liberty, but on the other hand there's so much fear involved. There's so much fear, and when I was younger, like in my teens, it was it's always something. It was like the Cold War, the fear of nuclear weapons. Now it's the fear of terrorist attacks and so on. So we are at a stage, which I will talk about in a minute, that there is huge fear involved. That's the collective, and we're all part of that. But then on another level, there is the culture of a country, and which is also very important to check out if you want to understand your fears a bit better. I think I talked about that in a video before, that I talked about when I studied. I did a little study on different cultures and their impact on doing business with each other. And I was, if you're interested in that, look at the books of Terpstra, which is really interesting. And my country, Belgium, scored very high when it came to fear, and when it came to not taking risk in doing business. And together with Japan, it was also a country which was very protectionistic and very, you saw it in the economy when a lot of people save money. So they are afraid of spending money, they are afraid of taking adventure, of buying something, of starting a business, and that's why they save a lot. It shows that a nation has this fear aspect, or in economical terms, a risk adversity or something. And I saw in the news a couple of days ago that Belgium scored again really, really high with saving nowadays. So that's not good, to save to the extreme. And you can compare it to other countries. I always compare it to the Netherlands, our neighbor country, which is so completely different also in doing business. They have more, I mean, on a country level, of course, not on an individual level, but on a country level, they have more confidence, they are very open, very straightforward, and that's why they take risks, they take responsibility, and that's why they're good entrepreneurs. I also have this example of when I bought this house that I'm living in. It is a very old house, and when I bought it, I have my friends and my family, the Belgian people, and I had of my boyfriend the people from the Netherlands, the Dutch people, the parents and their friends coming over to visit us and looking at the house. It was such a different point of view. It was like Jupiter against Saturn. It was like the Jupiterian approach of, they were coming over, those friends of the Netherlands, and they were saying, it's hard work, Veerle, it's hard work, but you know, I can see already, you know, the vision, the Jupiterian approach. I can see already that if you do this and that, you know, this door is very old, very authentic. If you put the paint off, you can do this and that, and so on. And it gave you a good feeling that, yes, there is this Still a lot of work to do, but you know, you go for it. And then you had the Belgian people who came into our house. Let's start with my mum. She looked and she said, was this your idea? Was this really your idea? And she started to criticize and to see actually realistic things, like, how are you going to heat this place? You've got a little baby here, and this place is just one heating element for the whole, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, she was right, but you don't wanna admit that. So it's Saturn versus Jupiter. It's the expansiveness versus the, you know, you have to be cautious. And it's not that the one thing is bad and the other thing is good. On the contrary, and that's what I want to talk about, because a lot of people think that fear is a negative thing. And I think you can see it in both ways. So this is on a country level. And then you can look at your family, how you was raised, how you were raised. I see this quite often with friends that, again, you've got friends who are very, you know, when you go to a park and you see how people go along with their children, and they say, off you go, okay, off you go. There are a few steps there, and, you know, the kid is just encouraged to do something, and when they fall, they get up again. And you've got other parents who are very much about, watch out for this, watch out for that. And although it is true, it is like putting fear on the child, and the child, depending on its individual child, will stop doing the things that it wants to do, stop going forward, or it will just do the opposite. Because you see quite often people who are very, very Saturn-like and very, very cautious of everything, and then they have a baby who just doesn't take care, who's just reckless. So that is on a family basis. You can look at your family. Was it a family that did want to take risks? Was it a family that was always doing its own thing and never changed? You can look at that as well. How were you raised by your mom? Very important. The moon, how your moon position, and how you saw the world, how you see the world, how you perceive it. So there is something about Saturn, there's something about Pluto, and there's definitely also something about Chiron and Mercury when we talk about fear. When we talk about fear and we want to see it on an individual part, we can look at different things. And first of all, we can look at the 8th house. The 8th house is the house of taboos. It's the house of battling with fears. It's the house of fear. It's the house of intimacy. It's the house of what we are not really, it's the house of trust. It's people who have a lot of planets there, even Chiron on the North Node, learn to trust other people, are challenged and stretched to rely on other people, actually. And mostly those people will be the opposite. I saw a client a couple of days ago who was 65, and she had a Sagittarian ascendant. She was very positive, but she had a full house in the 8th house, and she said her whole life has been this learning about fighting and battling her fears, and it was imaginative fears at a lot of times. And it could be realistic fears as well when she did her business and she was scared of losing money and all of that. So there is a big difference between real fear and between imaginative fear. And if you're having fear for something, it's good to think about that. It's good to think about, is this a Saturn-like fear? Is this a fear that is there to structure myself, that is there to protect me from being reckless? Like, if I'm in a manic state, let's say, if I drink too much, perhaps, I'm getting very optimistic, and I can buy a couple of houses with money that I don't have. So Saturn can protect you by, it's time you think. So Saturn can really make you think, and that's really good. It's the wise planet, and it's there for a reason. So if you're having fears, it's really important to ask yourself, why is that here? Is it a realistic one? Is it an objective fear? And if you're not really seeing it, ask for people around you who you trust and what they think about it. Ask for help and what their opinion is. You don't even have to take their opinion, but just it's good to be a bit more out of your own problem that you're having. And most fears are involved with Saturn transit, and that is actually a fear that's there for a reason, and a fear that is there for structuring yourself, for defining yourself, or for not doing stupid things. And it's there to make you think, it's there to make you a better person, it's there to make you trying. It shows that it can be a huge motivator actually, to trying to become better than you are really, than you are. Another kind of fear is so in other words, if you've got Saturn in your natal chart in connection with the moon, especially the hard aspects, the conjunctions, the oppositions, the squares, if you have Saturn so it can be related to your emotional state, that fear. If you have Saturn and your habits, you don't want to change them. When it's related to the sun, it's more about a fear of expressing yourself, of not being seen as someone who is unique. And when it involves like a Venus or a Mars, it has to do with those planets. Venus with love and Mars with how you act. Maybe you fear to act in a proper way. So it doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it's there. And I've seen it also with Chiron. People who have aspects with Chiron, like Chiron with the moon, shows that there is fear for safety. And it can be really, really imaginative fear. And it's there. You can ask yourself 1,000 of times, where does it come from? Was it my mom? Was it my dad? Whatever. At a certain time, you have to let that go and start to get practical and work with it. And so when Chiron is conjunct or opposite or squaring up to the sun, it has to do with your self-expression. So there is pain involved and fear involved when you show who you are, etc. With Mars, it is the way that you act, the way that you show your ego. And with Venus, it is love, that you can be afraid of getting hurt. But so Chiron is involved as well. And for the solution, if you want to see, and of course the axis. So if you have Pluto or Saturn or Chiron on axis, like the ascendant, descendant, the midheaven or the IC, it's also a team in your life that you're going to work on that way more than other people would normally do. Mercury is also very important, I think, in this whole thing. And therefore, if you want to see how to solve your fears, it's again very personal and very different for other people. You can have a look at your Mercury, and sometimes when you even have, I've saw many times with people who have even a good Mercury, with like a Mercury in Gemini or Virgo, it really relies on the aspects that it has. So you can have an aspect with Saturn, Mercury and Saturn. That would be the more Mercury's thinking, so the thinking more seriously, and that can be very, very good, of course, because it gives you this huge focus that you can have in your life, but on a negative way, you think negatively too much. And with Jupiter, it's not better. You can have a good Mercury in a connection with Jupiter, but that can just overdo the thinking, which is a key factor in people who have fear. Because it can be a key factor here a key factor in the solution is not thinking. So there are two different kinds. So if people are really depressed, it could be a good thing to start finding something. There must be one thing. For one person it is swimming. For me it was doing ballet. That distracts them from the future and the past, that puts them in the now, doing something that demands so much focus that you can only force your focus to what you are doing at the moment. And for the one it is gardening, and for another person it is reading a good book. It can be tons of things, but that is a good thing to do. Now, how can you see that you have a possibility in your transits or an opportunity to battle your fear and to handle your fear? You can see that in two kinds of transits, Saturn transits and Pluto transits. And we have now that special Pluto-Uranus square, which is showing on a collective level and an individual level that a lot of people are battling with their fears. Let's talk about Pluto-Uranus at first. This takes around 2 years, and actually time is in your favor when you have this transit. When you're having a transit coming up, Pluto-Uranus, on your moon, on your sun, on your whatever, or Venus, Mars, you may be sure of the fact that you are going to go through that particular fear and particular problem that you're having, and then you will become a stronger person. That's the goal of Pluto and Uranus. It's liberation of your fears, it's getting out what's in there, and it's your very authentic you that is trying to show itself. When it's Mars, it's going to involve your ego. It says that you have been giving away your Mars way too long, for a long time. When it's Venus, it has to do with love. Maybe you have given much, you have been compromising too much, or that other person who's close to you compromised too much, and so on and so on. I made some videos of every personal planet with the Pluto-Uranus square. I'll put a link below. But the bottom line is that it will take you through the process of there's a big fear, but you're going through it, and then you'll get liberated, whatever it is. For someone it's a little thing, for another person it's a big thing. It doesn't really matter. It's the acknowledgement of the fear, but also the taking those little steps, and on a very cautious level. So, and it is really liberating. So that reflects that people are really battling their fears. Not only your natal planets in Libra, in Cancer, in Aries and in Capricorn also especially mind the progress planets, and especially the progress moon. If the progress moon goes into Cancer or any of those 4 signs. Actually, progress planets and transits, they have very accurate events that you can predict when the change is going to come. Now, very often I do see when people are having those transits that Saturn is involved in a way. Or they're having a Saturn transit after the Pluto-Uranus square, or they're having one before, and it has a totally different meaning. When people have a Saturn transit after the Pluto-Uranus square, it means that they are structuring and defining their new situation. So that's quite nice to have that, even if it is now in the very fixed sign of Scorpio. So if you have planets in Scorpio, in Taurus, in Aquarius, or in Leo, then you have this aspect with Saturn. So then it is really falling into place, and it is more of a finishing up of things. Now, when the Saturn transit comes before the Pluto-Uranus transit, it means that for the individual, it is even more of a big thing for them, because tell me your fears and I'll tell you who you are. So our fears really tell us a lot about ourselves, what we think is important in our lives. And if you're having first a Saturn transit on maybe a totally different planet than is considered with the Pluto-Uranus square, it means, and especially in those fixed signs, it means that you will feel before the Pluto-Uranus transit an enormous feeling of not freedom, feeling very chained in a particular area of your life. And actually that is needed in order for you to step out of it and to handle that Pluto-Uranus square on whatever personal planet it is. So it makes it even a bit more challenging, but I also think it makes it even more of a reward. And it's a good thing in that way that Saturn is a bit putting a, how do you call that? You've got the accelerator and the opposite, you know, restricting it, because otherwise this Pluto-Uranus would just throw the baby away with the bathwater. Is that the expression? So it's try to see it as a good thing when you're having that the Saturn is really trying to lower the energy that Pluto-Uranus is all about, because Pluto-Uranus gives an enormous boost of energy and asks a lot of your body and just your body, mind and soul. So stay healthy when you have a Pluto-Uranus square. Try to be healthy and try to eat healthy. Try to do a lot of movements, not too much, but try to be very much in the now and take it one step at the time. Now, as I said, I'm going to put a link of the Pluto-Uranus square on the personal planets. I hope this was helpful for you, this video. I wish you all the best with Pluto-Uranus squares on your personal planets that you're having. It is really an opportunity, don't forget. So try to see it like that. Anyway, thank you for listening and bye-bye.